I'm John Duffy. I meet people that faced fear and chose courage instead. Their stories will move you, challenge you, and remind you what's possible. This is the Live Courageously podcast. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Live Courageously podcast, show number 96. I'm your host, John Duffy, and Live Courageously has been the conscious theme of my life for the last 5 years since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. Only 10% of podcasters get to create 100 podcast shows, and I'm only 4 away from that milestone. So stay tuned, and I hope you join me in spreading the message of living courageously. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and share the show to support our mission. Today's show is with 2 very powerful women making a difference in the world. Sister IRENE O'Neill is a member of the Sisters of St. Joseph, known for her work in education, philanthropy. She previously led the Sisters of St. Joseph Ministries Foundation for 2 decades. And currently, she is both the founder and serves as the president of Ssters Rising Worldwide, a global nonprofit connecting Catholic sisters and facilitating collaboration. And Kelly MALLON Young is the COO of Ssters Rising Worldwide. And after retiring from a successful career in sales, she now introduces people to opportunities to fulfill their lives by giving back to those in need, and in some cases, saving lives. She could not be happy volunteering her time to such a great organization, protecting the most vulnerable from traffickers. She says she's blessed to work with such powerful women doing powerful work. And with that, let me introduce you to both of them. Greetings, Sister IRENE and Kelly. Thank you for joining Live Courageously. I appreciate you being here today.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for having us. And 96, that's awesome. Congratulations on that. That's huge.
Thank you. And, you know, I obviously with a lot of my life, when I started, I thought I was going to do 3 or 4. And somehow, I guess it probably similar to your life when you got involved. I think you were telling me. God seems to have bigger plans than we sometimes have. So Here I am down with 96 and going further. But I like to just do 2 things when I start the show, and then I'll get into what you're about and the work you do. But I always like to ask my guests, how did we meet? Because most of my guests I've met in person. So I start with that. And so maybe Sister IRENE, since how we met.
Oh my gosh. I love when people introduce me to other people. And there's a gentleman here in St. Paul named Dan Flynn. And he is a great admirer of John Duffy. And he said, you're going to California. You've got to meet John Duffy. I'm going to try to arrange it. And we met at this fabulous coffee shop. It was in Santa Monica. And I don't know how many hours we sat there and visited, but it could have gone on for days. We had so much fun sharing stories and, swapping experiences. So that's how I met John.
And it was great. It was the same place where I met Dan Flynn about 1.5 years ago as well. So we kind of, and that was a great conversation. And I did not expect to meet you or find out everything you were about, but it was, wow, what a time just flew. And you're right. We could have went on for a way past that. And then of course you introduced me to your COO who was supposed to be there, but couldn't because of other obligations. So we ended up doing a Zoom together to get to meet each other online. So that was when I got to find out, Kelly, you may want to comment on that, but that's how we started to get to know each other.
Yeah, actually, it was actually very interesting. You are so good at responding. Like sometimes you send emails out and you're just waiting a couple of days. You're like right on it and you're emailing us back. And it's great to see the enthusiasm and the responsiveness. And we love what we do. And we hope that, the people will love what we do when we get done with this. But and I've had the pleasure. I've worked with Sister IRENE now. We've been building this organization for 7 years now. And like I said in the introduction, I'm super blessed to be able to work with these, courageous people, right? That's, your whole podcast is about living courageously, and I get to work with them every day.
Well, what does that mean? I'm going to jump. What does that mean to you, live courageously? How do you see that in your life or in the world? What's your take on that?
I think living courageously is really putting other people first and not worrying about your own safety or your own needs, but choosing love first, right? Doing things forever and serving other people in a way that does not benefit yourself, but it benefits your heart and your soul, not, really meaningless. Like right now, and we're kind of jumping a little bit, but like with the USAID going away, there's a lot of NGOs that are pulling out of these communities. They're living in complete darkness, and the sisters stay, and they're living in these war zones, and they're living in these really dangerous places or just places with nothing. And they do it with such joy. And to me, I think that's living courageously. That's really just serving others, like I said, and despite of what your needs are.
Absolutely, 100%. Sister Irene, how about for you?
Well, I like to add to what Kelly said in terms of one of the courageous things is to know that the answers are around you, and that you're helping people who have expertise and may never have been asked to use them before. So in these really horrible crises, it's not one person with the answer, but together with the group, we probably have the answers among us, and they just do it. They just go forth and they trust each other to help. It's their community. Sisters are living in a community, and the members of the community, it's about all of them solving it. But the sisters often are the ones that'll say, what do you have? What do you have to help? What do you know that the rest of us don't know? And to trust it, to trust that you'll be able to work it out, and you have the knowledge among you, to get out of it. So that takes courage. Yeah.
It absolutely does. And you're right. How did you individually and both end up? You talked about coming together in 2017 and forming, Sisters Rising Worldwide. But how did you get to that place that you formed this organization? And maybe give us a little backstory. I know in your incredible, great TED Talk, and I hope everybody does watch that, about what's it called? The Power of None.
Yeah.
I think it's an excellent title, and just because a lot of the audience and a lot of this audience doesn't know. And we'll get maybe into some of the big picture stuff of how many Catholics are in the world, how many places you're Catholic, you're in 190 countries, how many nuns there are in the world, all that stuff. Because most people, even Catholics, don't know that. And you talk about that, Kelly, in your talk. People don't know this. So give us some of that backstory that led to the foundation of Sisters Rising Worldwide and your experiences.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, great. All right.
Take it away.
Both Kelly and I have parts of the story. So, well, I have this little merry band of sister friends who we always say that we're all accused of being visionary. But what we knew is that there are 650,000 sisters around the world. And they're all in all the hard places on the planet. And we know that we're in 190 countries. And they were doing life-changing work. And so what we wanted to do, we realized, oh my gosh, what would happen if we pulled that together, that knowledge base together, and we were able to share best practices? I mean, there are sisters in parts of the world that are just starting clinic systems. And here in the United States, we've built the hospital system. There's a lot of expertise and best practices that can be fed there, go back and forth there. So we thought, and so that's one thing. The other thing we thought is that there are resources enough on the planet to help solve the root causes of the poverty, but they just are stuck. People would give it if they knew that it was worth it. They would be giving it to the right place. And so I always tell people I'm really like a pipe fitter or a plumber. I'm just moving resources to need, whatever it is, to the sisters. So what happened is that, my little merry band, we thought, well, let's find the list of where the sisters are, and then match them with the people who really want to help make differences, and then move the resources to need, and find a way for the sisters to share best practices. Well, so we went to the UN first, where there are 44 sisters who represent 200 orders around the world. So we figured they had like 75,000 or more nuns under their 44 sisters. And we asked them for the list, and they said, we don't have a list. We always wanted one, but we don't have one. So we were kind of shocked. So anyway, I was on a board that took me to Rome a couple times a year. And there's an office there called the International Union of Superiors General. And it's where the 1900, say, Mother Superiors come together every couple of years. And we thought, that's where the list is. So I asked Sister Pat Murray for the list. She says, no, I don't have a list either. I only have a list of the Mother Superiors. And so that's when my little Mary Band and I thought, uh-oh, now what do we do? One of the sisters said, now we need my cousins. And I thought it was like right out of a mafia movie. It sounded like, we need my cousins. And it turned out that Kelly is a cousin of one of these nuns, and she has a sister who lives in St. Paul, where I'm from, and they visit her often. And she has another sister who is a very prominent engineer and has done some major things. And they flew into St. Paul to help us on one weekend. And what I said when they came, I said, I just want a map of the world, and I want to be able to click on every country. And I want it to open up, and I want to see the nuns and know what they're doing and where they are and what they need. And so now, Kelly, you can jump in and say what that was like sitting at that table.
So Kelly came in to help out for a weekend.
Yeah.
How long ago was that, Kelly?
7 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. So my sister's brilliant, and she kind of put this design together of what this platform would look like. And I was supposed to understand and help put a presentation together because I was going to deliver it for Sister Irene a month later. So I get the ins and outs, and I'm practicing this presentation because I was in sales. So presentations aren't a big deal for me. I do them all the time. So I spend a month with Sister Irene. I met other sisters, and I was hooked on this. Organization. I've always done a ton of charity work in the past. I've done charity work with my boys. We've been very active in their whole growing up. And so when I retired that I wanted to do something special, but it was probably like 2 or 3 years before I was asked to help this weekend. And when I met them, I knew this was my calling. I knew this is what I meant to do because, for over 400 years, these women were silently saving lives. And people that, it's like the people that have been forgotten from their governments that, just need they just need some hope and a little bit of direction, and they will thrive. And so I understood, and I picked this up pretty quickly. And then I was thinking, it makes sense. I did this one presentation, and we were talking about offices. I mean, could you imagine having 650,000 employees, and they're all scattered around, and you can't get information from them, and it's like all pieced together? It's like they wouldn't be a successful company. So I knew that if we could build this platform and we can get the sisters on it and talking to each other and leveraging the knowledge that they had, that we could be on something that we could really be changing the trajectory of the world. And it's funny, every time we talk to somebody about our organization and what we do, they're like, we're 650,000 nuns. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And I love shocking that. Like, what do you know? Like, well, I work with the nuns. And they're like, what? What are you even talking about? So I went ahead and I said, yeah, I work with nuns. We go ahead and we share the stories of the work that they're doing so they can do more powerful work out there. And, if you ask anybody about a nun, they're like, well, they're trustworthy, right? And they like them. They know they do good work, but they have no idea what they do. Our job is to go ahead and bring to light the work that the sisters are doing so we can really start moving the needle on humanity.
Now, did either one of you, and I didn't know this, and I did some research, coming into the show. Did you know that there was 650,000 nuns in the world? And then I realized when I was doing my research, it's like 250,000 more than there is Catholic priests. And no clue. I mean, when did you discover that it was that big a group of women throughout the world doing this work?
When did I discover that?
Yeah. When did you discover it?
I never had a number, but I knew it was really big.
Okay.
Because I know, in the United States, even when everybody says, oh, they're disappearing in the United States, but there's probably, I don't know what the latest number is, but I'm going to say 45,000 of us
Okay.
in the United States, and maybe it's higher. I don't know. And that's a minimum. And I also knew that we have, so the sisters are connected to federations and international. So like Sisters of St. Joseph are international. And we have a federation in India, a federation in Africa, a federation in Europe. And so that's just Sisters of St. Joseph. But there are 1,900 different orders across the United States. So you start multiplying. I knew it was a big number. And so, and every once in a while, like our Sisters of St. Joseph would get together, and there's several thousand, that are able to come to get together. And there's ones that can't make it. So I always knew it was huge, which always was thrilling. It's thrilling to know, because whenever we met each other, and this happened to me at the UN, as a matter of fact, when we went to look for the list. When I met the 44 sisters representing 200 congregations around the world, you would think that we would say to each other stuff like, well, what are you doing and what are you solving and stuff? But you know what we do? We say, how are you? We know that what they're doing is what's needed. And everywhere where they are, the need is different. And so the action is different. But they'll say, how is your mom? How's your mom's surgery going? And so you talk, who's bringing donuts the next time we meet? I mean, you feel sisterly with these women when you meet them, and it feels so grounded, I guess. And then when you hear what they're doing, I mean, that knocks your socks off. I mean, it always does for me still.
I think that's important. Like, right, 650,000. I did not know until I got into that room that weekend. But this is why it was so important to build this technology platform that the sisters can log in. So now we can have a database of the sisters, see exactly what's going on. I mean, Irene was right in the very beginning. We have this map, and we can click on it, and we can pull up all the sisters that are registered in that country. We can understand what is happening in their community, and we can understand what their need is. I mean, it's a pretty powerful technology platform. When we show people are blown away. They're like, you have what? And because it is exactly, like I would say, when I say the word humanity, I really do feel like it is a way that we can really help humanity. We can really be linked to it. But the peace room is pretty powerful. I can go around and, when people ask us, hey, what's going on in this community? I'm like, well, let me check real quick. And then if we don't know, the great thing is we can reach out to another sister and I'm like, hey, do you know somebody in this area? And they're like, sure we do. And they give us the name, we contact them, and we have all the information from on the ground, directly on the ground. It doesn't go through middlemen. It's actually the sisters that are living in that community that tell us the stories of what's happening.
Well, Sister Irene, took the time when we were at Earth Cafe to show me that technology and put it on a computer and show me how the links work. And she, talked me through it. And yeah, it's pretty impressive. And obviously it gives you a way to start doing the work that you're trying to do. And I mean, just, like I said, doing a little research for this, I didn't know. I mean, apparently there's about 68 million Catholics in the United States and 1.4 billion worldwide. So we're talking about just that population alone. But just like in your talk, you're about servicing everybody, not just the Catholics. So it isn't like you're aimed that none of the nuns are just working for the Catholics. They're working for everybody. And that's the other powerful thing about your. But so given that, why don't you give us in the audience an overview of Sisters Rising Worldwide and its mission, and share that with us so we can understand, people can understand a little bit better what your goals are and what you're accomplishing.
Mm-hmm. Well, our mission is, we know that because the sisters live on the ground in the places of need, we know that to a sister, so imagine 650,000 around the world, they know what the root causes are of that poverty where they are. And what we also know is that if you solve the root cause of poverty, rather than deal with the symptoms, lifelong symptoms, it's way cheaper. And that's been proven out to us, where there are some, massive NGOs and things that know that solutions that they would put millions of dollars into something, when if we ask the sister, what do you need? It comes in at $11,500 or something like that, we were able to stop trafficking in Senegal for $5,000 to build the wall. And, so it's targeted. The root causes are very specific and they're different in every place. And so what we knew is that there are people, the people who give, who are also heroes in this story. The people who give feel so good about knowing that it was at a certain place, it solved a certain problem, and that because of that, the lives have been flourishing because that's happened. So, and then we're able to give impact stories back. So that's the point of Sisters Rising, basically. Kelly, how would you add to that?
To build a little bit on like living in the community. These sisters are, and people don't understand, a lot of them have multiple degrees, or if they run into a problem with a law in their country, they'll go to law school so they can go ahead and combat like laws to empower women, right? To get women's rights back. So they do a lot of different things. And they really, by living in those communities, they're understanding the skill set of the people there. So their solutions are so direct and easy. They're not sending things out for research or flying people in to really study the area. They've already studied the area. They know that they're highly educated. They're very trusted. They understand the people in that community, and they're able to come up with solutions. They're very cost effective, and really nobody can stretch a dollar more than a sister too, right? They're very fit. A lot of the programs we do would be anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000. Yet we could be saving, for a program of $15,000, we could be saving 1,000 lives. So there's a lot of different things. The other thing too, like about our organization, that we're pretty different than others, in that we're directly with the sisters. So there's no middleman in us. It's us. We talk to the sister, we find out their needs, we raise the money, and we go directly to their account that they can directly work with the people. So like Irene was saying, the impact, we're able to show significant impact in a very short period of time. And we get, stories from the people that are there. So yeah, and right now we're really proud. So since we've been around, 90% of the money donated goes directly to the sisters on the ground.
There's just some amazing things both of you just touched upon. But once again, you talked about the nuns and sisters on the ground knowing what the problem is and knowing what the solution is, because they're hands-on in there, where like a lot of times organizations or NGOs or whatever, they spend so much money doing research when
right.
You got the people on the ground who have the answers, and they don't talk to the people who have the answers, right? So right. And so they come up with all kinds of plans, but they're not useful because they didn't talk to the people on the ground. Once again, they're they may be out of a university idea, and it's just like, yeah, that's nice, but it's not working. And then the other thing, like you talked about the nuns, which I learned as I didn't know all of this was true, but the highly educated part you mentioned, but also the vow of poverty that you mentioned in your talk as well. So here's these people who are so committed to service, and what they do, it's a force for good. It's just an amazing force of good.
Yeah. Largest movement of women for good the world has ever known are the sisters. Yeah. It's pretty incredible. Yeah.
The other one more comment about that is that I love is that if you imagine, so let's say, there's 650,000 sisters. So imagine if every sister knew one person who helped. Now, what is it? 1.3 million or something like that. I'm doing the math in my head. Okay. But so that's that. Now you've got a pretty big group, let's say 1.3 million, but sisters know hundreds of people. So the network of good that we're really talking about is tens of millions strong. And every donor is part of that too. That's beyond even the people that are around the sisters that are trying to help. It's a huge movement, and it's a silent movement because it is a problem solving. It's like you're working to solve the problem. And so then you can get on with life and start flourishing. And you don't, what's exciting is you hear maybe the flourishing part, but you don't hear the part how it started. What was the thing that really got the flourishing going, and how did they eradicate the problem, or, and the stories we have are just endless, and they just make me smile because the solutions to these terrible root causes are so creative and unique that and those stories don't get told somehow enough. You know, we always go, once you solve a problem, the nuns go to the next problem. The nuns are the worst to tell the stories, to tell you. I mean, they're too busy.
Right. I think that's where what you've created is to create that network, to have all that through the technology, using some of the tools that you created to bring this together. But you're right. Their goal, and I believe you said it on your TED Talk, Kelly, you know, their goal is to create systematic change and not be a Band-Aid. And so, you know, that's, and so they got to keep working, right? Because there's never an end to the problems in especially in the poor countries of the world, whether it's war, poverty, famine, you name it, gangs, so many, the list goes on and on and on. So they're always going to be in the middle of trying to solve problems and changing people's lives, because the problems don't disappear.
Well,
And, you know, and that's but they need the support, which is what I think, you know, I see what you've been creating is to do that, to create that support, to create that network, to give them the stuff that they don't have so they can do their work even better and more effectively. Am I correct in that? Is that part of what you're doing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You brought up something too. It's a sister will move into a community that's struggling, and she figure out what solution is, and then she will build it. So whether it's an education system, whether it is, you know, job skills training, you know, many different problems that we solve, domestic violence, and she fixes it. And then if that community is starting to strive, she'll move to another community and then help that community. So we've had sisters that are on the platform that have moved from community to community because we've helped that community, and now the community is doing well, or she can give it to another sister, you know, and that sister, that's a growing sister, right? And she can take over that community, and then the other one can use her expertise in another community. But yeah, I mean, something that kind of is more relevant to the people even in this audience is 80% of the things that the sisters do really are protecting people from being trafficked too, right? They're giving hope and opportunity through education, through job skills training, through, you know, getting them away from domestic violence, by empowering women, giving women rights. So it's all really, really intertwined with human trafficking. And I mean, as we know, human trafficking is a terrible statistic, and it's continually growing. The last stat is that the profit of that industry is $236 billion. If you do companies, I think we have it's Visa, it's Google, it's Walmart, Amazon, Apple. If you combine all of those together, they still are not as big as the profit in right now. So yeah.
And you mentioned in the TED Talk, I mean, just the size of the problem, besides the amount of money, is that 27.6 million people are affected by trafficking every year. That's just every year. And it's a worldwide phenomena. It's sexual trafficking, it's labor trafficking, it's all kinds of different trafficking in different places. It's unique to those countries, and each area has a different problem with it. But yes, it's one of the probably maybe one of the biggest problems in the world.
What people don't understand too is there are traffickers in other communities around the world, and they are walking pretty much freely in these communities and talking to people like, oh, well, well, some families are very desperate may sell their child, or what will happen too is that they would just tell them like the grass is greener on the other side, and families don't really understand. They think that their kids are going to be safe. All of a sudden, the kids disappear. So I mean, that is openly happening in these communities around the world, but not to think that it only happens here in the United States. There's human trafficking cases in every zip code in the United States. I mean, it is happening in every one of our communities, and like being aware, not being scared, but being aware and knowing what to look for, and you know how to help and so that. So that's very important. But also too is this prevention. And like I said, a lot of what the sisters do is preventing people from being trafficked, because those that are living in poor or are migrating because of dangers and stuff. Those are the ones that are most vulnerable for being trafficked. And it's a growing industry that we need to start. You know, everybody needs to be a part of that solution.
Yeah, and I've had, you know, the opportunity. I went with an organization here in California, Cert Ministries, that's been around for 20 years, rescuing children and young girls from sex traffickers, actually going out and taking them away from the traffickers. And we went downtown LA. I was with them doing some filming, and you saw these young kids walking around practically naked, being trafficked, and police cars just driving by doing nothing. And you realize how horrible a problem it is. And you know, there's not enough attention put on it. And that's just in our society here in America. But obviously in other parts of the world, it can be even worse. So you're right. There's just so much that needs to be done on this issue. And people can be doing so much. And so supporting organizations like yourself and your organization. And I know, at one point is if people can donate, that's going to help a lot to build an organization like this. Anything that, is going to be about making a difference, serving rather than, ignoring the problem, because the problem doesn't get better. Sister, why don't you weigh in a little bit on this as well?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, there's again, the sisters are all aware of it. There's actually an international anti-trafficking organization of sisters. They call it's called Talitha Kum, which means in Aramaic, it means little girls stand up. And that was developed, that's in 190 countries. There are these, cells of sisters working on the anti-trafficking movement in every country, because it's trafficking is about movement wherever anybody's moving. I mean, if it's because of a natural disaster, because of domestic abuse or violence or whatever it is, when they move, as they move, traffickers follow and they carve off the people. So what happens is the nuns communicate from country to country if they start seeing that there's trouble, and they try to map out where are they going to end up next, where are they going, and what's happening, and how to save the women. And what Sisters Rising Worldwide has been able to help with, part of the solution there, is that they can, if in the Mexican border, a lot of people end up in the Mexican United States border, and if there are people there who don't speak English, and might be from the Congo, the sisters can go to the map in the peace room, click on the Congo, ask the nuns what's happening there, and we have some of your people at our border. They've escaped, but we don't, are you looking for them? It's a way of a communication system there. But in terms of the, the creative solutions, because what the most powerful thing is not just saving them once they've been trafficked, it's stopping it in the beginning. And that is all about preparation, So, for example, in the Philippines, Kelly talked about it just a little bit, where the traffickers tell the parents, well, your kids can be earning money and it can be coming back to you. And the nuns knew that they were being trafficked, but they knew the people didn't know about trafficking. They hadn't heard about it. They don't know that organization. And so they tried to go to house to house to house to house, but it was in too many villages and it was just overwhelming. So they asked Sisters Rising Worldwide if we would fund a bookmobile for them. And we always say, okay, now, how does the bookmobile solve one of the root causes of trafficking? And the sisters said that they knew that parents would come to the bookmobile with their children, and the traffickers would not come to the bookmobile. So they had captive audiences in the bookmobile, and they could teach about, safety and how to be safe and what this trafficking thing is. And don't trust, when they say, we'll take your children, they had to teach it. And at the same time, the kids could also read books and they could learn, but it had to be a family thing where the family learned about it. And then the sisters could take the bookmobile and drive to the next village, and they would do the whole thing over. So in that part of the country, that's what helped there. And in other parts of the world, like, let me take you to Kenya. The young girls are asked to collect the water. So in the morning they go and walk. So they're moving from point A to B to get water. And that's when they get trafficked. They get taken right whenever they're moving. And so how to solve that? What do you do? How do you solve that? Because how do you move the water? Well, we developed, what we did is help them with water catchment systems. And so when people give us money for water catchment systems, what that is doing is not only keeping the young girls from moving to getting the water and getting trafficked, it also allows them, now that they don't have to get water, they can go to school. And the school is safe. And so they're safe in the school, and they have water. And then not only does the water save them from being trafficked, but the parents now can do kitchen gardens during the drought season, and the kids are all in school. But so it follows movement. Whenever you hear of a disaster happening somewhere, anywhere, a lot of times there's the environmental disasters that happen. The traffickers are right there.
Yeah, we funded another program. It was just really funny. This lady, or the sister, reaches out to us. The kids walk 12 miles to school, 12 miles there and 12 miles back. But on the way back from school, the girls were getting trafficked or they're being sexually assaulted on the way home.
Wow.
So the nun's like, if you can help us raise money for a van, I can keep girls in school because they're not going to drop out if they have a way to get to school. So we raised the money for the van, and this was just recently. And so June 1st, or I think it was June 1st, is their national exam. Well, now all these girls were staying in school. So now she's emailed me desperately, like, oh my gosh, like our national exams are coming up and now all these kids are flourishing in school. Everybody's doing well. I need more science kits so these kids can take the national exam so they can go on to the next level. But, I'm like here, and we get videos back from like these students, like, I want to be a doctor now, or I want to be a lawyer. And they're saying this video of success, but then the need and the protection, just saving the girls from walking home from school, right? Now they're able to decide what they want to be in this world, and where they're able to flourish and be the full potential that they were meant to be. So,
well, listening to your talk, there's so many great things that you said at the end. You have a comment, and then I'm going to go back and ask you what's different from your nonprofit than others. But you have a comment that says, nuns are the white blood cells of the world, healing the world. That's a pretty powerful metaphor, because you were talking about your kids, how you told them when they got something, a cut or something, how the white blood cells, and you see the nuns as that. It's like, what a creative, powerful comment about who the nuns are. And so elaborate on that a little bit, but then I want to take you into telling us about what makes your organization as a nonprofit different than others. Yeah. But go ahead with that, if you mind.
Sure. So I have 3 boys. I think on Sunday, they'll be 24, 25, and 26. So this story doesn't really apply to them anymore or work for them. But I used to tell them when they were little that if they had a cut, right, that the soldiers in their bodies, which are white blood cells, would go to that and they would fix it from the inside, and that they were going to be okay. And it keeps them safe, these soldiers that go around and every time they have an injury, right? And I kind of was reflecting on that too. I mean, the sisters actually pick up and go to those communities that are struggling, and they try to fix and come up with systemic change. And then they leave, and then they'll go to the next community or the next cut, and then they go fix that community. And I kind of was like, it's such a correlation too, because I do feel truly, and especially, like I said, I'm learning so much as we go of really what's going on around the world. Like I've been exposed to so much, and the stories are overwhelming. The stories of the work that they're doing, they are so courageous in what they do, and they are so dedicated and knowledgeable, and they are the nicest group of people, and funny, and you love being around them. But they're doing all this incredible work. They're not asking for anything in return. We're not paying them to do these things. They just do it because that's, their calling in life. And so I do feel like they are really healing the world, and we need some healing. Let's face it. I mean, I think and that's the thing too. It's like, there's so much ugly news and just bickering and, everything going on. It's like, why aren't we uplifting these stories? I mean, I can make somebody's day every single morning by putting something, just showing what the sisters are doing. It gives people hope, and it gives them faith and believe that there is still good in this world, and there's a lot going on. And I think the sisters with 650,000 are, what's really
well. I'm going to pivot for a second and then come back, so bear with me. But you just said something that I just kind of want to link to what else you had said. But like you said, why aren't we sharing those stories? And you made a comment. What if the media was less concerned about what a celebrity had for breakfast and more told stories of hope?
Yeah.
Yes. What would that be if we actually could care less about what a celebrity does for breakfast and started to share these stories, the stories that of what you're doing in the world and these nuns are doing in the world? That's what we could, really all get elevated from. instead of who cares? Eat what you want to eat for breakfast. I don't care, but they spend all their time on that. But, that's so I just wanted to point that out because that's a great comment, I think.
It's funny because I actually am hosting some people at my house this weekend, and my niece and her two friends came, and they're young too. And, you're clicking away, clicking everything. And I'm like, what are you doing? Right. And I did tell them, I said, your generation, you are such social warriors. You talk about it. But what are you doing? Right. How are you elevating, clicking on all these, things. It's great and fun. And you are young and you should have fun and stuff like that. I mean, they're all college level, but I'm like, but you guys can make a difference.
Do something.
Talk about environmental. Well, the sisters are working in the environmental end of it. We're doing all these things that are very, very important with you. Let's get that younger generation aboard, and even $5 a month, right? That's if we had. There's 650,000 nuns. So we had 650,000 people that gave $5 a month. We could change the trajectory of the world. We would give so much opportunity for people. And I think the world would thrive so much better.
100%. Now, Sister Irene, I'm going to get back to you so you can share a little bit. What makes Sisters Rising Worldwide different from other nonprofit organizations? How would you sum up your mission, your purpose, and what makes it special and unique?
Well, we did. Wow, there's so many.
Is that too much? That was a lot, right?
Well, the thing is that the answer. There's a lot to that answer. I think.
Yes.
One is that we don't pay the sisters. I mean, this is, and I'm only saying that not because it's about money, but it's about heart. These hearts are so big that they will give their whole life to this work, and they don't. See the credit, when a community starts to flourish. If you were to put the microphone in front of the sister to say, tell me how you do it, she'd say, I didn't do it. And she'd move the microphone over to the people who had to live through this chaos and through the poverty, and who really pulled themselves up, with the vision of knowing that we can solve the problems, together. And so it's there's this some kind of it's an honest, deep felt joy in the workforce. If you think of the workforce as 650,000 sisters and all the people that are working with them and all the donors, because all that huge group of people, I don't know one that's bigger than that. That huge group of people can actually say, we did that. It made a difference. It really changed not just the people right in front of us, but the next generation and the generation after that. When education, or you're healing through the health, through health systems, or working to create safety and all that stuff, and people start to flourish. I mean, it's not about we do one thing and this is what it costs and we'll give it to you and enjoy. It's not that. It is the flourishing from the ground up. And the language, for me, of course, I live, being a nun, of course, I live in the nun world. I always tell everybody have this nun head. Even the language is different. You don't talk about, you don't say all the poor people. People, it's not that. It's people first. People right. Who are poor. It is people. And you don't say, you don't think of it as a group of people, but you think among those individuals, there's a scientist, there's a teacher, there's a doctor, there's a philosopher, there's a visionary. And how do we help them open themselves out and begin to flourish? So it's a different way of looking at the world. And I don't always run into that in other places that, it gets narrow, like now, when you think of all the places around the world where USAID was being very helpful and, keeping people alive and stuff, and they had to go away. The nuns didn't. The nuns are in all those communities. They're still there because it's a different depth of empathy, I guess. And the empathy doesn't belong just to the sisters. It's something that it's probably one of the most valuable things that needs to, you can catch it, and it's, you need to develop it. And it's important for people to say, you know, I'll help, or I care. We always say that if you know somebody, you can't hate somebody whose story you know. And so, you know, imagine if our world was just empathetic, if that was the first knee-jerk reaction. And that's really why the sisters join and why they're there and why they go to those places, because they think, you know, it can make a difference. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it answers a lot of it. And I mean, obviously there's so much and we could go on but there's more, you know, what challenges, you know, what unique challenges do the sisters face when working on all these issues globally? Because they each community work on different issues, right?
Right.
What are the challenges do they face? Because you know, that they're not supported in the same kind of way. They don't have the same kind of economic support. And that's one part of it. I also want you to talk about, you know, your future fundraising campaigns to be able to grow this and to support this even further. But what are the challenges do they face? And then we'll talk about some of, you know, how people can help you too. We'll do that after, but keep going with that.
Well, what Sisters Rising Worldwide is able to do is to speed up their solutions. So like if you're in a place where there's a drought, there's no water, and the solution is water, you know, what we have to do is care. What Sisters Rising Worldwide knows that that's the problem. They've communicated with us. So the sister saying to the community that she's living with, of water, we think catchment system is the answer. I'm going to get into the peace room and see if Sisters Rising Worldwide can get us find somebody who would donate catchment systems. So probably the greatest challenge for anything is the waiting. It's the waiting and it's not that it's the waiting, even if somebody's thirsty today and they have to wait a week for, you know, so in the meantime, they have to they're still with the people, you know, they're thirsty too, and they're with the people, and they have to keep the spirits up. And, you know, those are probably the greatest challenges. And also there's a lot of the culturally, you know, every country, you know, across the world is so different. And to work through solutions, like in some countries, the wars are happening between tribes or between religions or between ethnic backgrounds, or, you know, and the sisters don't do that. You know, the sisters are trying to blend that together. They're just serving people.
Right.
And sometimes the solutions, like I'm thinking now, El Salvador, what they knew in terms of how to solve the gang problem there is they had to start with the moms and the infants. And so it had to build slowly, but they knew it would work. You know, we could, you know, how do we raise it? So that's a, you know, but it doesn't, you know, you're on the right path, kind of, I guess.
Well, a year ago, I was lucky. A friend invited me to come to Micronesian island of Yap, which is a small, tiny island off of Guam. And I mean, it was so different out of my world because I grew up in New York in the Bronx, and I spoke to people there. I met some of the tribal leaders. I spoke to a group of high school students, and, you know, you're right. The culture is so different. And with the high school students, at the end, I encouraged them to ask questions, and they were too scared to ask questions. And one girl came up, and she was the brave one. And we told her, we're like, that is so brave of you. She stood up and she asked questions. She said, and then she had a vision of what she wanted to be. And we were like, wow, we just encouraged it. But, you know, you're right. Each place, for me, it was an experience unlike any I ever had, because their world was so different than ours. Their stores were so different. There was like 20 items in the store. And, you know, so I was like, for breakfast, I'd get peanut butter and crackers. I'd be like, okay, that's my breakfast. Yeah. But you got to realize the world was so different than our world. And that's what, you know, you see in all these countries. And each country has its own unique challenges and its own unique problems. But that's, you know, very special that what that does is that bringing that network together. Kelly, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I wrote down a lot of notes because things I've never even thought of. Because, you know, when we talk about some NGOs pulling out, right? this work is the sisters' lives. It's not a job, right? Where the egos are pulling out because of jobs, right? It's like instead of going on a diet, it's, making life changes, right? So this is how dedicated the women are. And the people that they serve, they don't have anything. I recently went on a trip, which I I wanted to go, but I'm like, that money for the airline ticket can go to helping them, right? But what I realized going there is that these people they were like, oh my gosh, somebody traveled this far for me. They care about me. Somebody's thinking of me all the way across the other side of the world. And that gives them hope. That gives them spirit. And I'll tell you, these people that have absolutely nothing, they greet you with song and dance. And, then you just start dancing along with them. They have so much joy and they have nothing, right? And when people talk about being poor, or, these people have nothing. And yet they greet us with so much joy and love. And I just think, as a society and as a whole, like we can really help those people. And I think one of the things you asked too is, how we're a little bit different too. We crowdsource, so people can go on our website and see the different programs that the sisters are doing and something that you may be passionate about. If you're really passionate about education, because you're a teacher, you can pull up programs that are dealing with education and go ahead and fund those. We have one right now on our website about a computer lab. So these kids, can start learning about computers and doing that. We have 3 right now pertaining to empowering women in job skills, where they need sewing machines, they need material, and they're not just getting job skills training, they're learning literacy. One of them is setting up a little bit of a micro loan so they can start a business and helping them with a table at the market, right? It's just really, really great solutions that are really making a difference in the world and helping people. So the other thing too, like every program, you can see exactly what the money is going to. So the sisters, when they fill it out, one of the things is how much money do you need and how is exactly going to be spent? And then you get to see, and you can be a part of that change by just donating to that. So those are some differences too. We have, right now we have a program in the Bronx in New York. It is a safe home for survivors of human trafficking. And it needs a lot of repairs right now. They had to close down, but every year they take in 10 people that have been trafficked, and they go ahead and do all the therapy that's needed and job skills training and computer and everything to get them back on their feet. And every year they do 10, and they've had to close down because they need a new electrical, new roof. But we have the opportunity to really make a difference in something that you may be passionate about. If you're passionate about a country, you can donate to a country. If there's something you're passionate about and you don't see it on the website, give us a call. We'll find it. So, and I think our biggest need, you say, for the sisters, and I think the biggest need for Sisters Rising is getting the word out, going on social media and liking us and sharing us and, friending us and just following us and what we're doing. We're going to be doing a race starting in the 4th quarter. And that would be really, join that. It's a cumulative race. It's something over time, but doing those things and becoming a sister champion. Like I said, sacrifice 1 cup of coffee a month to help us, grow, because somebody had said with the Peace Room, we were growing with a number of sisters and the donations. We were all kind of equivalent. We're going together. And I'm like, but we're getting a lot more sisters. And just keep going, keep focusing on that Peace Room. So we have a lot of sisters that have been joining us this year. And we want to keep up with helping them. We don't want them to be discouraged that we're not able to fund some of their programs. So, get involved, help us, take on a program and fundraise it with your group of friends. But at a minimum, be a sister champion, $5 a month, sacrifice a cup of coffee a month and be a part of this journey with us.
And the website is right on the screen, srw.org. So you can go right to the website and they can donate. You can see all the work you're doing. They can get involved in the work. They can do all that. So yeah, I recommend everybody check it out and support the continuing work that you're doing.
Yeah, it's been fun. We have great impact stories for anybody that wants to know. We help save girls from the water catchment system is great. Yeah.
So tell us, Sister Irene, Kelly, maybe we got a few more minutes. Maybe tell us 1 or 2 stories. You told a great story about the van and how that was used by giving books out and the creative way that was done. But if you have a special story that you'd like to share about, what the nuns have done in one particular place, maybe give us a story, because stories are powerful. And then eventually we want to make films and stuff like that to support you. Hopefully we can do that too.
Let me just add one. I told a little bit about the water catchment systems, and that's in Kenya. But what I didn't say is that the people there said, "What should we put the name Sisters Rising Worldwide on the catchment system? A gift from Sisters Rising Worldwide." And I said, "No. These are your catchment systems. You decide what to put on them." And they put on the phrase, "Courtesy of the girl child." And it was so powerful for that community, because the girl child is just the one who goes and gets the water. But this way, the girl is providing the water for the whole school and the whole community. And, anyway, so that was that was a really neat value added there. I told you about the mobile library in the Philippines. I want to tell you one more story in the Philippines. A few years back, the farmers were trying to grow their own gardens in their communities to make them a little bit bigger, and they weren't able to grow the food, and it was really frustrating. Well, the sister knew that the land was depleted because they hadn't been refreshing it over years and years and years. So anyway, so she had to teach them, how do you refresh the soil without chemicals so that it will stay fertile and that you could grow enough food to feed your family and the community. And so she started teaching farming lessons, and the word started spreading, and it was going further and further out. And so this nun wrote to Sisters Rising Worldwide and said, "I need a shelter. It could be a metal thing. I need a roof and the sides, because the farmers are coming from so far away that they need to spend the night so that they can learn how to do this." And so that was one simple solution, and they've been able to grow more food around the Philippines because of that. Simple.
So
you tell a story, Kelly.
I'm going to tell one real briefly. I know we're running out of time, but when we talk about living courageously, right? There's a sister in India, Sister Ramya, and she, visiting some communities in the area, and she went to this one community, and the people were being tortured. They were having to walk through the town naked, and they were being burned to death, and women were being sexually assaulted. It was really, really bad area. And what she did is she went in at night, and she would have some of the kids, she would take them with her, and she would take them down to her school. So she was kind of saving them through the night so people couldn't see that she was taking them, and she would bring them back to her school. And that's where she'll house them. She feeds them, and she educates them in like 1 of 4 trades, and helps them also with therapy to kind of get through the trauma that they had been experiencing. But I mean, super brave to go into another community to go ahead and save these children from a life, that was just horrific. The things that we can't even imagine that are going on around the world. These are what the sisters are doing, and they're doing it so bravely.
I got to tell the vertical garden story too. This is a short one too.
Go for it. Yes, please.
In Nigeria, there was a group of marauders that were going through the countryside, and they were killing the farmers because they wanted their food, basically, is what they were taking. And so the women and children were running to the sisters in the cities because they were gathering. Their sisters have the biggest complexes for them to come in. So anyway, they came in. Well, after a while, there wasn't enough food for anybody because the farmers weren't growing the food, right? And the kids were saying, "We are farmer children. We will go back and grow the food." And I said, no, this group will take you. They'll take you, they'll traffic you, you can't leave. So she contacted us and said, "What am I going to do?" And we said, "Well, do you have walls around your place?" Yeah. "Have you ever heard of vertical gardening?" No, they never heard of vertical gardening. So we sent some links, just a whole bunch of links on vertical gardening. She's like, "I get it. I know how to do this." Well, she had to teach the carpenters how to build, because nobody in the town anywhere had heard of vertical gardening. So they built these like ladder structures, you've seen them, and the troughs on the steps, and they would grow these huge plants. And she had the youth be the farmers of them inside the complex. And they grew enough food to feed people. Everybody in the town kept saying, "How did you do that? Where did that come from?" But so the kids grew it, and they could sell it for a little bit. And so she was teaching them job skills, and they had this vertical garden going. It was just fabulous. Anyway, that was totally new. I think, well, we just changed Nigeria.
Wow. Well, we've come to that point. I knew there's so much more we can talk about it. And who would ever thought that a coffee in Santa Monica with you, Sister Irene, would lead to this incredible, great conversation. And for me to get to meet some incredible women who are doing such great work in the world for others of service. So I am so honored and so blessed to have had that opportunity to meet and be able to have you on the show and share this. So any final thoughts from both of you about how people can support you? I recommend going to the website. I'm going to put it back up again. Go to the website, donate. Don't buy a Starbucks. Donate it to Sisters Rising Worldwide. It's much better than Starbucks, trust me. But any messages that you might have in closing, how people can support you, or anything else you would like to say as we close out the show?
I'll say one, and then I'll hand it over to Kelly as well. But I really think that people who are listening to this could make this way of life. They could join this way of life by by being empathetic and looking at Sisters Rising Worldwide and seeing the ways that they could help to own it. They can own the work of Sisters Rising Worldwide. We need the donors. They're helping this happen. So if you go to our website, it's fabulous. And we'd love to welcome you to be part of us.
Yeah, and I guess I would just say, thank you for listening and, hearing our stories. And we do really hope you join us. If you actually go to the contact us, it goes directly to me. And so I read all the emails that come in and, just join the newsletter just to, every month we send out a newsletter. It just has some impact on the things that we're doing, some of the people that we've helped, some of the programs we have going on. And it's a simple, easy way. It's just a great way to understand what's really going on in the world and to be a part of change. I mean, I think in Delhi, all of us are naturally born with the ability to wanting to help people. And so I think this is a great opportunity. Every little bit makes a difference in other people's lives, and we can all be a part of this change. So yeah, www.srw.org. Follow us. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And spread the word, share our stories, share what we're doing, because we need everybody to make this difference.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you both, Sister Irene. Thank you, Kelly. I am so honored that I'm blessed that I had the chance to be introduced to you. And, I think that's one of the greatest things that happens in my life is that I meet incredible people like yourselves who are making a difference. And we need more people who are willing to do that. So, yeah, please step up, support the work they're doing, stay in touch with them. And, of course, I'll stay connected with you, and anything I can do to support you in my way, I will do what I can. So thank you so much. Have a great day. I'm going to close out the show. And thank you once again for joining me.
All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Well, everybody, I hope today's show with Sister Irene and Kelly Young inspires you to service and making a difference. And I hope you share their message and go to their website, srw.org, and support the work that they're doing. Make a donation, get involved, do whatever you can. And if you haven't seen the previous 95 podcasts with some of my amazing, courageous friends sharing their powerful stories of overcoming all odds and going on to live powerful lives and making a difference in the world, you can watch them on my YouTube channel, Live Courageously, or Live-Courageously, my website, and support the message of living courageously. And join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. and a repeat at Wednesday at 6 p.m. for another courageous guest. And I encourage you to choose to live courageously, make your life a masterpiece, and God bless you until we meet next week.